Hello, and welcome back to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. This will be our final episode in this toy box, because today we're going to finish it up. And as you can see, I have made a lot of changes since the previous episode. I've added in all of the plants and decorations and most of the breakable objects. So let me take you on a little tour so you can see what I've got, and then we'll hook up the logic and we'll be done. And I'm going to show you the pieces that I've used and where I've placed them. And if you're building this toy box, feel free to pause the video as we go so you can copy what I have here. So coming out of Toad Hall, around this corner is where we're beginning. And I've placed a number of breakable cars. These are out of the decorations drawer. There's a number of cars. You can use the ones I've got here, or you can use any colors you want. You don't want to pack this too full, though, because all the breakable objects take up memory, and they take up a lot of memory. So be sure you don't overload this. You don't need a lot of them. As you can see here, you place a few and spread them out. When you come through this breakable wall here, and you drive through here, there's going to be plenty of things to smash. So you don't have to go crazy with the breakables. And here's where I've placed those on this street. And again, you only need them on this side of the street because the player's going to be taking that turn. This is where they're going to be. So you don't really need to waste the memory putting breakable cars along here. And then over here, we've got some more. And some more. And we've got breakable cars over here. I've got a plant cluster that I've placed over here, lined up the way you see. We've got some little Main Street USA tables. These are out of the Building Sets Group 3. And this is why you don't put a ton of breakable cars in, because you run into that problem. So trying to get to a point where I can just put this back in. I'll have to be careful not to pick these things up. I'm trying to get that meter on the right there to go down. It's not doing that. Yeah, I shouldn't have picked that up. But anyway, you see where that is. And let's see what happens if I come out over here. Boy, that just will not drop, will it? Okay, well, you saw where to place it. This is going to do something really weird when I do that. So leaves a little box around it. But anyway, you can see what I've got there. Oh, and we can remove this object from last time. Okay, so we got those. We have some over in this corner. We've got some positioned here. And again, you can look at the texture on the terrain there to kind of see where to place those. And then we have this customizable plant cluster. These are from the plants drawer. They're the first 9 pieces in the plants drawer. Okay, so it's this one that I'm showing here, oriented that way. Notice the little sprig on the lower left on the base. Okay, so that takes care of town. Now, coming out of town, I have a couple of blocks from the blocks drawer spaced the way you see them. And that's just this piece and this piece. And that shows you where to begin placing these pieces. You can see how I've oriented them with the corner of that cube. And just create a line of these down here. And at the corner, another 2 over this way. And then you can see these trees, and notice how they're oriented. For those of you who want to duplicate my toy box exactly, notice the little location of the purple flower there. And again, you can look at the ground texture there to see exactly where to place these. The little flowers and things on the ground there will kind of give you an idea of where to put them. And again, feel free to pause the video along the way. And these are just kind of to put something in the background here. So it doesn't look empty. All right, and then we got a couple of them on this side of the road. And a couple up here on the top of the cliff. And then we've placed a couple of blocks here off the edge of this terrain seam, right at the top of the slope here for the road. And you can see where I've placed this first piece, how it's oriented with respect to that block. And then you're just going to run a line of these down. Notice how I rotated this one just to keep it from being too repetitive here. Okay. And I'll get to that fence in a moment. Before we get there, let's come over here. So I've got a tree up here on this side, another tree on that side. And this block is directly across from here. So you can kind of see how that's oriented. And then we got the fences set up that way. So these fences are out of the decorations drawer, and I'm not going to pick it up because that'll be a problem, as you saw. And it's you have to scroll about halfway through that drawer, and there's a lot of them. But these are from the Cars playset, I believe. And it's the small fence, the small wooden fence. So I've got 3 of them down this way. These run along here, all the way down till you start the curve, going past the farm there. And then you do 1 more past that, and then 3 this way. And then for the crops in the field, notice how I've oriented these pieces. This is the first piece out of the plants drawer. And notice how I've oriented these on the front. They're rotated. And you're going to see why that's important after I style this. And these back here you don't have to worry about. I just put a line of them along the back just for depth. So when you're driving along, oops, it looks like the field is full. But there's really only 2 rows there, and you don't need more than that. All right, on this side, we've got 4 fence pieces, and then 3 in this direction, 2 in this direction, and then you run these all the way down to the bridge. So like you see there. And then for the crops in this field, again, notice how I have oriented all of these and alternated them. And then this one on the end, just so the player can't see that there's a gap there when they come around this corner. And then these all just run all the way down toward the fence. On the opposite side of the road, I've got a helper block placed here on the edge of this terrain seam and a half a block back from this terrain seam. And then the first fence piece lines up right there. And we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. And then on this end, you run them all the way down till you're across from these. Okay? And notice how that lines up. And then you do another 5 down this way, just to give the appearance that that's all fenced off in that direction. And I've got another big tree here. You can see how that's oriented. Notice that sprig and where that's placed. It's on the back right corner here. And then again, we're alternating these every other one all the way down. And these sit back here, and you run a row of those all the way to the fence. And then you have 3 of these along here, just so that as the player comes around this bend, it doesn't look empty back there. Because again, remember this block, you can take that out. That's not going to stay there. And the same with these little helper blocks back here. You can take these out also once you're done placing those plants. Okay. Got a couple of trees here for the farmhouse yard. And then on the end of the fence over here, I've run a line of these plants down here just to kind of provide a border for the yard. And then a row of the crops behind that. And if you line up the edge of this with the back edge of that, and you leave a little space, just run a line of those all the way down. Okay, and then before I forget, let me do these trees back here. So we've got some trees along the back behind this field, and you can kind of see how they're oriented. Again, that's just to provide a bit of a border behind the field. Okay, and that is pretty much it for this farmyard. Oh, there's a few plants along back over here. And then along the back of the terrain, I just ran a row of these plants. And I stopped here on this terrain seam behind the edge of the farm because the player's not going to see anything past that. And then just a few scattered trees out here along the back of this. Just 2 actually. That's it for the first farm. Now down here I've placed a few trees. Let me try to spin the camera for you without making you dizzy. But here's the edge of the bridge at the bottom of the screen. So you can see how all of those are placed. There's 5 of them down there. And over here we've got a few more trees. This starts here on the end, and I got 3 of these with a couple of trees behind them. On this side of the road, we have this piece, and it's the stone fence from Building Sets Group 4. It goes with the farmhouse and everything that I used over that way. And again, probably be good to show you that. Building Sets Group 4, they're the farm wall. And I did this for 2 reasons. One, primarily, so the player can't just jump off the cliff and try to take a shortcut. And 2, the positioning of it covers up the terrain seam here, which is always a good thing. And then I put a couple of these breakable objects from the decorations drawer. These are just a couple down, if you scroll down a couple, 3 pieces from these wooden fences. That's where you'll find those. So they're right near the wooden fences in the decorations drawer. All right, over here, as you come around this bend, on this side of the road, we have this little piece, this tree. We have this plant and 5 fence pieces from the decorations drawer and another customizable plant cluster. Noticed where that's placed in the little sprig. And then I've got a tree here, a few little trees here, and we have the fence that starts right at the corner. So if you look at the terrain, or the road seam there, this is where we're starting this fence. And you do 6 of these down this way. And the rest of these, you run all the way down on that terrain seam to cover it up, all the way till you get to the canyon. And then I've got a couple of trees down here. Try to give you a good look at those. And one over there. All right, so that's everything on that side of the road. On this end, if you notice the terrain or the road seam here, that's where you're going to start your fence. And you'll put 6, 7 pieces of these down this way, and 3 down that way, and then just put a few trees in here, oriented the way you see there and placed how you see it, to just fill that area a little bit. And this one I put here specifically in this spot because when we customize it, it's going to cover up this gap back here, just to kind of hide that a little bit. We have a few more trees here. Up to the corner of the farm. On this end, you take the fence and you come around like this, run it down this side of the road till you get to the corner there where the dirt road turns. You can kind of see the terrain seam here. And then you run a row of those down here till you get to the cliff and just put one in there like that. And a few of these trees over here, 4 of them, positioned as you see. We've got some hay bales. This is located right near the wooden fence in the decorations drawer. That's just a nice addition here, and you can crash through those and break them, which is fun. And a few wooden crates, and these are right near those wooden fences as well. All right, so that is all of those trees. So now, most of the trees are going to be styled with Mickey's Farmland. So just grab any one of these, open the styling menu, go to the left until you find the Farmer Mickey terrain, and I am going to theme all. The vast majority of these are going to use this theme. And then it's going to go through and theme all of these things. So now you can see how it themed these. And you'll notice the reason I had these rotated and oriented the way they are is so the little fence, the little white fence there kind of lines up as you go along. So I kind of like that. And it makes it not too repetitive. But you only need 2 of those because you'll notice as you go down the road and you're driving along, it just adds a little depth to have 2 rows. And you're not going to be able to really see any more than that as you're driving along. So it's just mainly for the benefit of your peripheral vision. So it looks like it's a field full of crops. So you can save a lot of memory just by doing 2 rows like that and giving the illusion that it's a full field when really it's not. Okay. And you'll notice this turned into the windmill, which is really good. And same over here. So this all looks really, really good. All right, there's 2 pieces, though, that should not be the Farmer Mickey terrain. The first one is this one. So we're going to change the theme on this guy, and we're going to make it use the City Park corner. I'm going to apply. So just that one piece. And the other one is this piece down here. We don't want a windmill in town. Instead, we want to use the marble fountain. think that looks better. All right, and there we go. Now, the last piece we'll add in are the breakable walls for Toad Hall. And these are these pieces here. How's our memory looking? Oh, pretty good, actually. But you find those up under gameplay toys. They're the destructible brick wall. And you're just going to run a row of these, kind of centered underneath that block that's hanging down. And you're going to cover up that hole all the way down. You're going to do the same thing on this end of Toad Hall over here. That gives the player something to crash through there. And there we go. The build exercise is now finished. All we have left to do is add the logic, and fortunately there isn't much logic to do. In fact, the logic is so simple, I'm not even going to bother creating logic diagrams because you don't need them. So the first thing we will do, and I've already placed a lot of the toys we're going to need. First thing you will need are the vehicle summoners. And again, these are from the gameplay toys. They're right near the brick wall. It's the vehicle summoner, and notice how I've oriented this. So if you're going to read the IN, it's going that way. And that's important because when we generate the car, we want the car facing this way. And so that is the right way to orient this piece to make that happen. I've also got two buttons here, one on each end of the vehicle summoners. And they're kind of centered around Mr. Toad here. And I've got another button sitting over here. All right. Now the vehicle that I recommend using, let me come out of the editor. The vehicle I recommend using is the vehicle power disc, Mr. Toad's motor car, which you see here. This is the motor car from the Disneyland ride. And so if you have this power disc where you can get it, I highly recommend using it. If you don't have this disc, you can use any vehicle you want. I'm going to go ahead and put mine down on my base so that we can get it into the toy box. And did it generate? Is it sitting on the roof? Yeah, it's sitting up here on the roof, and that's fine because I'm not actually going to use that one anyway. So the properties on these you're going to leave the same. You're not using the properties on these vehicle summoners. But what you're going to do is you're going to come to each of the buttons, and again these are out. The buttons are out of the Creativitoys drawer. You're going to do a new logic connection when pressed. Come over to the vehicle summoner. Go down to the hexagonal power discs and select Mr. Toad's motor car. We'll make the same logic connection on this button. And this way you don't have to have the power disc in the toy box or have it handy in order to be able to play. And then this button here is just for cleaning up the memory, so we'll do a new logic connection when pressed. We'll come over to each of the vehicle summoners, go all the way to the bottom and remove all. Do the same thing with the other vehicle summoner. And that gives you your vehicle and a way to remove them. Okay, so that's pretty easy. And at this point, let's come out of the editor. I will go ahead and take the power disc off the base. And that gets me my memory back. All right, so that takes care of the driving vehicle. Now the next thing we want to put in are the boost pads. And for this, let me pull up my screen grab here. Couple of things here that I want to look at. Okay, we need the boost pads and we need the vehicle weapon generators. We're going to come over here for the first set of the vehicle weapon generators. Again, you find those under the Creativa Toys drawer. I'm going to put these right here on this seam. I'll put 3 of them down. And again, these don't work unless you go in and turn them on in the properties. So go into the logic menu, open the properties, turn that property on. You have to do that for all 3 of these. So if you don't do that, these vehicle weapon generators won't do anything. Okay, so there's the first set of weapon generators. The first boost pad, actually I think it's the only boost pad, is going to go over here, and you find that in the racetrack pieces. Make sure you look at which way those arrows are pointing. And we're going to put this right here at the start of the hill. Odds are the player is not going to hit that thing dead on. They have a chance to do so, but unless you're really precise, you're not. So this is going to boost you probably at an angle up this ramp, which will send you crashing into either that fence or these toys over here. Probably that fence. And so I think that's just kind of funny. All right, and then over here, we're going to put in another set of vehicle weapon generators. So back up to Creativa Toys, look for this terrain seam, and go to the little seam between the fences, just beyond that terrain seam. That's where we're going to put these. And once again, go into the properties for each of these and turn these on. And actually, we do have another boost pad. And it's right up here on the other side of the bridge, because the shortcut through the cave is a lot shorter. And so to kind of make up for that, kind of make this even a little bit, we're going to stick a boost pad right here. So anyone who chooses not to go that way, they get a little speed boost advantage to help them get around this corner and try to catch up with those below. If, of course, they can hit the boost pad. Alright, so there are the weapon generators and boost pads. Last thing I want to do is put in the critters, the cows, that the player can potentially hit. And I don't want to place those directly in the toy box, because once I do, they can wander around and leave this area. I kind of want them here when the player comes through the first time. And so we're going to use a replayer to put those down. And that's going to be keyed off of a trigger area that I've set up over here in the canyon. And this is out of the Creativa Toys drawer. I placed it and then I stretched it to go across the whole way. And we're only going to want to do that once. So I've put the replayer and a logic gate over here. So we're going to come over to the replayer, go into the properties, take the playback interval to 0. Then we'll come out of the editor, step on the replayer. On my Wii U, I press B at the bottom there in the menu on the lower right to start recording. I have to step off to get back into the editor, and then we go up to the critters category, and we go to the left and look for the cow. I thought about using chickens, but the problem with that, oops, going the wrong way. The problem with using the chickens is they're kind of small, and the cows are bigger. So we're going to place a bunch of cows out here. I'm going to put maybe 6 of them down, just kind of place them around. Maybe we'll put 7 of them. Then we'll exit. We'll step on the replayer again to get the menu in the lower right. I press B to stop recording, A to clear. Make sure you only press A one time. Alright, so that takes the cows out. And now when I play back the replayer, they'll be exactly where I want them to be. And I put the trigger area to spawn those way back here to give the replayer time to do its job before the player actually gets to those cows. So that's why we placed that here. Excuse me. So we'll open the logic menu on the trigger area and do a new logic connection when entered by player, any. We're going to come over to our logic gate. Because again, we only want to do this once. So I'm going to feed it through the logic gate and do an input. We'll do a new logic connection on the logic gate on output. We'll do a playback on the replayer. And on the logic gate, new logic connection on output. We will turn around and turn off the trigger area. And deactivate it. And the reason I have the logic gate, I could have gone directly to the replayer and not used a logic gate at all. Had the trigger area connect directly to the replayer to do the playback, and on the replayer done a new logic connection on playback. And cancel out of that. Go turn off or deactivate the trigger area. The problem with that, though, is that it takes a little bit of time for the replayer to do its job and to put down those cows. And if you've got both players, 2 players in the toy box, and they're right behind each other, and the second player hits this trigger area before the replayer can finish the job, you can end up corrupting the replayer because you'll try to play it back a second time and it's already doing the playback. And so that's why I'm using the logic gate. Because I can turn around from the logic gate on output and immediately deactivate that trigger area, and that happens almost instantaneously. So a second driver who's right on the heels of the first driver will not cause this replayer to be played back a second time. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Alright, last thing we need to do is configure our toy box store to take us back to Fantasyland. So on this, we're going to go into the properties. We're going to change the destination, link to an existing toy box. We're going to Fantasyland. And we want to go back to the locator number 5. Because that's the locator we put right outside the door to Toad Hall. And with that, this toy box is done. But we have 1 episode left in this series, because there's something that I had forgotten to show you way back at the beginning of the series. So next time, we're going back to Main Street, USA, and I'm going to show you how to build a parade. Every day at Disneyland ends with a fireworks show and a parade. And we built the fireworks show, but we didn't build the parade. So I'll show you how to do that, and then this series will be finished. Until then, I want to thank you for watching. Before you go, please hit the like button, leave a comment to let me know what you think of the completed toy box, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the final episode. You can also follow me on my blog. That's all for me today. Take care.